Language is a magical thing. It allows us to share what we think and understand the thoughts of others. Whenever we speak, type, or write anything, we do it with a particular purpose. Sometimes we want to pass on information or express our feelings. Sometimes we describe things or just want to tell a joke. Generally speaking, there are 5 main functions of language: the informational, aesthetic, expressive, phatic, and directive functions. Scholarly and scientific terms serve the informational function because these terms are only meant to describe objects, concepts, and processes. As experts explore subjects, language will be needed to describe the new objects, concepts, and processes. Society didn't always know about things like chromosomes. They were first discovered by a Swiss botanist named Carl Wilhelm von Nageli in the 1840s and were formally named in 1888 by Heinrich Wilhelm Godfrey von Waldeier Hartz. Today, chromosomes are a well-known thing. The vast majority of people who learn about chromosomes accepts them as real. Also, if I were to say chromosomes were once unobserved, then observed, and then language was applied to what Carl saw in his microscope, no one would bat an eye. It's also not controversial to point out that more common words to describe things change over time as well. The word meat was once used in the same way we say food today. Bread was meat. Carrots were meat. The Popeye spicy chicken sandwich would have been meat. It was all meat. Over time, the word meat has narrowed to only mean the flesh of mammals for most English speakers. People also accept that there are niche, field-specific terms that aren't usually used in conversation, but are still valid descriptors. Unless someone is some sort of space alien trying to blend in, most people wouldn't consciously identify as a Homo sapien, but people still accept the term as a valid descriptor. Language evolves. Words take on new meaning. Entirely new words form that are derived from older words. People also accept that they don't always identify with every valid descriptor that may apply to them. These are widely accepted concepts that no one in their right mind would take issue with, but some people forget these concepts whenever anyone uses a certain word. A very specific word. And that word is cisgender. Sociologist Kristen Schilt and Lauren Westbrook define the term cisgender as a label for individuals who have a match between the gender they were assigned at birth, their bodies, and their personal identity. The word comes from the Latin-derived prefix cis, meaning on the side of, which is the opposite of trans, meaning across from. So it would be appropriate to use the word cisgender as an antonym for transgender. And that's it. That's all it means. It's a descriptive term to describe anyone who isn't trans. I pulled all of this straight from the dictionary and Wikipedia. So this info is not at all hard to find, but people still seem to be convinced that the term is a slur. People of the majority of any society are so accustomed to their likeness, values, experiences, and sensibilities being reflected back at them that they come to perceive themselves as being normal. Because they perceive themselves as normal and society receives them as normal, they are used to seeing anyone who doesn't fit their mold as an other type of person. From what they've heard, these other types of people seem to experience a lot of discrimination, and most people of the majority may even agree that this is a bad thing. In their minds, labeling someone as different must be the first step toward discriminating against them, and they don't want any discrimination to come their way, so any type of label placed on them besides normal is threatening to them. This mentality is why many white Americans have such a hard time discussing race, let alone racism. The thinking is that if we don't explicitly acknowledge difference, we can't possibly have any ill will against it. It's impossible to hate something we don't acknowledge, right? Well, unfortunately, things aren't that simple, and this is just a bunch of bullshit. Regurgitating vaguely liberal catchphrases doesn't negate that we have social expectations that are influenced by things like media representation. Burying our heads in the sand does not cure us of our biases. Being open to learning does. Essentially, cisgender is the new white privilege. They are both neutral terms that people see as a personal attack. The negative reactions of both terms are grounded in a lack of self-awareness and understanding of others. These terms cause people to use abstract liberalism and gaslighting to try to paint themselves as the victim, and both terms drive people to bury their heads in the sand. Keep in mind that criticism of how the term cisgender is used does not always mean a person is transphobic. I've actually heard a valid critique of the term from Krista Scott Dixon, the editor of the book Transforming Feminism. Trans-feminist voices speak out. Scott Dixon doesn't think the term should be mainstreamed. The argument is that cisgender may not be a clear enough term for people who aren't of the LGBTQ community. She suggests mainstreaming the term non-trans instead, but she still doesn't have an issue with the term itself. If you literally think the term is just a bunch of made up stuff, you might be on some bullshit. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if you haven't already. Thanks.